What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Patrick, aka Addicted to Combat, back for another Wednesday live stream. And we got a banger of a card this weekend. It's actually a Saturday morning card here in the States. UFC Charlotte, North Carolina, heavyweight clash in the main event between Jairzinho Rozenstruik and, man, the Brazilian Chimaev at this point, Gelton Almeida. It should be a fun fight card. We do have 12 fights in total on here, and it's a sneaky good card. Anthony Smith and Johnny Walker at light heavyweight in the co-main. And there's a lot of returning faces, only one debuting fighter on this card in the very first fight of the night. So hope everybody's having a good day. I do have a very special guest on this stream to break down this card with us from a gambling perspective. Very popular guy in the community, Dan Levy from Half the Battle, a show I've been watching for a long time. He's a great gambler, a martial artist himself, and happy to have him on for the first time. So let's bring him in here. What's going on, Dan? How you doing?
Doing amazing, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, dude. Do a little victory lap now. I saw your tweets. You were on a couple of big dogs last week, Yan Xiaonan and Bilal. So how does that feel to catch two big dogs that I feel like the community was a little bit against, you know?
I mean, it always feels great, but it feels even better with these two specifically just because, like, it was just like the biggest, like, coincidence that my two biggest money trains of the last 5 years were not only fighting on the same card, they were fighting back-to-back, and they were both underdogs. Like, I literally have bet Yan Xiaonan in every single one of her UFC fights and Bilal in like his last 12 UFC fights. So yeah, it's just, I don't know why people haven't gone on board yet. Like, it's literally like when people ask me for betting advice, I tell them discipline, money management, bet on Bilal Muhammad. Discipline, money management, bet on Yan Xiaonan.
Man, I can't do the victory lap with you on Yan Xiaonan. I wasn't confident enough to pull the trigger and bet her. But Bilal, I was surprised that he did not have a minus next to his name. I'm surprised it was a plus. The guy's super well-rounded. But I'm not going to lie, everybody's tweets about his swollen ankle the size of a golf ball was really, that was really getting to me. I was like,
you know what's crazy about that is that now all I hear about is Gilbert's shoulder, and all of a sudden, like, all the talk and the pictures of Bilal's ankle looking like a golf ball, all of a sudden everyone forgot about that, and they're discrediting the performance. So once again, my man, next fight we're gonna get dog odds on Bilal once again. They still haven't learned their lesson. There's another guy with the same situation, Jamal Hill. He was only minus 120 against Glover last fight, and like he was plus 160 against Crute. Like, when you can find these little money trains and just ride them all the way till the wheels fall off. And there's going to be one on this card we're going to talk about, Ian Garry. The only thing is his line's a little bit up there. Whereas when we talk about these guys we've been betting every fight, like Xiaonan was plus 160. It's not like I'm out here, betting a minus 500 and, bragging about how I bet this person every fight. Like, it was a plus 160. Like, you understand what I'm saying? So when you get that consistent value and they're overperforming their prices, you just gotta, I like to have my roster of those fighters.
Especially when it's a guy like Bilal, where he's kind of just always faded because people don't like his personality or his fight style. But man, boring is good when it comes to the consistency, the boring performances, the finding the weakness. That's always a good thing when it comes to a gambling performance, right? It's like that might have been a boring fight as a fan, but having a big bet on Bilal, that was an exhilarating performance watching him do his thing in there. So we'll shout out the chat real fast. Grateful dude in here. Looking forward to this one. My guy Cody from Blood Money MMA Bets. Looking forward to the fight companion. Yeah, man, since this is a daytime card at 10:30 a.m. Central Time, we'll be hosting a live fight companion, so I'm sure my guy Blood Money will be there. Johnny K. Picks. We'll probably get another person there as well. Ryan Jordan in the chat. Good to see you, dude. We got my guy Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast saying, what's up, boys? A nice hat, Dan. Yeah, it's a shiny hat. What is that?
That's the Atlanta Braves. It is the best team in baseball.
Okay, there you go. Well, you gotta. I know this is your first time doing a stream. Any other sport besides combat sports? I don't even know what teams or where they play. Nothing.
Okay.
We got our guy.
If you don't know, now you know.
Now I know. Okay, there we go. Anthony W. Excited to hear your boys breakdown. Appreciate the time. I appreciate you hanging out with us, Anthony. Telling you to preach. We got Zach Singleton here. Good to see you, man. My other Zach Johnson. Yeah, Dan is an OG. And here we go. I seen you guys popping off on the Twitter. Say, what's up, Patrick? Hope you're doing well, man. Where's my chain? Dude, I don't rock chains. My neck is too big. They don't have them size enough, What's going on?
You got to get like that 28. That 28 is probably your size.
I get that one that, yeah, like on Little Wayne, it would hang down to his ankles, but on me,
Something like that. Like,
but we can break into the first fight of the night. I think we still have all 12 fights here. Kicking off with the only debuting fighter on this card at women's bantam, we've got Jessica Rose Clark taking on Tainara Lisboa. And this is a spot where it's a tough fight to get a read on because we know about Jessica Rose Clark. We know she's 4-4 in the UFC, sort of middle of the pack, good striking, but she can expose the wrestling game a little bit too if she's fighting a better kickboxer that's fast in the feet like she did against Luana Carolina. And she's fighting a Muay Thai champion, but she was a champion like 10 years ago. Tainara Lisboa, Brazilian chick, not the youngest prospect going. She's 32, and a lot of her accomplishments in Muay Thai are, far in the past. And so far in her 5-2 record, it's been against not the best level of competition. So, I see a lot of people taking that dog money on Lisboa. I think it's still out there. We're looking at, no, she's flipped now. She's the -120 favorite. Rose Clark has that plus next to her name at even money. There's just so little data on how Lisboa is going to look against somebody UFC caliber. So I'm going to lean on the experience of Rose Clark here. I think her striking should be good enough. And Lisboa, I like her game, Dan, but, she's expecting these girls to kind of melt under her pressure, and you can speak on her jiu-jitsu game. She's got a couple of arm triangles, but again, it's like negative record opponents she's getting it on. What's your read on this fight? Is this even worth betting on?
For me, I'm not going to bet on it, but like when you say UFC caliber, how good do you really need to beat Jessica Rose Clark?
True.
That's no disrespect. She's come a long way. If you watch some of her older fights, she was like a bigger girl, and then she like lost weight and like got a couple wins in the UFC, beat Paige Van Zandt, cashed for me a +105 there. But now, she's kind of getting up there a little bit, been finished the exact same way 2 fights in a row against lower level opponents as well. And with this new girl, obviously, like you said, she hasn't beaten anybody good, but at the same token, she's treated the cans accordingly. Like they're all first round stoppages or second round stoppages. It's not like she's being competitive with the cans, right?
Right.
And she did fight Dumas in her debut, did decent until she wasn't doing decent. Fought Valentina in a kickboxing on a Muay Thai match back in the day. But bottom line, it's just about, do you favor kind of like you were saying, the experience of Rose Clark versus kind of like the upside of Lisboa? And I have no idea, but I'll just go with Lisboa just because, how many times are you going to let Jess let you down?
Right. And we're looking at the over under in this one at 2.5, -210 for the over 2.5. Goes the distance, -165. I'm looking at a bet online. Like that's enticing for any women's fight. Like goes the distance, -165. It's just I don't know about Lisboa. I don't know much about her. Her gas tank should be okay. We've seen her go multiple rounds in Muay Thai. It's been some years, but yeah, Rose Clark coming off back-to-back armbar losses. And the second one, she kind of did own up to that being, like she just wanted to be in the card with, I think that was the Izzy card, Izzy and Cannonier. And, we had Volkanovski on there. So she wanted to be with like her, somewhat of like that region of the world watching the card. She wanted to be on it, even though she had just lost by that same method before. So Rose Clark also like on the non-tangible side, like she's switching camps. I think she just moved to Texas and she's at like a kind of a quilt style, like just getting her Muay Thai in here, her jiu-jitsu in here, and kind of settling into a new training environment. So nothing I really want to get behind, but like I said, I will lean on the experience of Rose Clark. So I think that's a sketchy fight to start off the night. But yeah, anything else on that one, man? Any props sticking out to you? No, not at all. Yeah, it's hard with somebody new, but luckily that's our only debuting fighter here, so we can move along to 170-pound bout, Gabe Green and Brian Battle. And this one I do have a better take on, but I'll let you kick this one off, man. How do you feel about this matchup?
Yeah, they're 2 dogs. They're going to get after it, man. I like Gabe Green. I know I've faded him like his last 2 fights, but I still like him. I faded him against Phil Rowe, and I faded him against Ian Garry. And I got to tell you what, he impressed me in both the fights, against Phil Rowe, big leg kicks, came out with the right game plan, chopping down like a much larger opponent. And against Ian Garry, he was completely out of his league, but he gave it his all, and that's all you can ask for. So the kid's a dog. I respect it. Battle, I was surprised when he dropped to 70s. He got that head kick, which was great, but he got exposed badly against the 20-2 Russian. And, I think it was like, wasn't it like close to a pick 'em which is absolutely insane in hindsight.
I think I got like minus 120 on what's his face, the Renat Fakhretdinov.
So I think that, Battle is probably going to be the more physical, larger, more athletic guy. But I think that, Gabe Green, he got that dog in him. So, no bet again, but I'm going to go with Gabe Green here.
Yeah, that's the side I settled on. I don't feel as good about it now, but I did put a bet on Gabe Green at minus 125. I just thought that was a decent enough price for a guy who's going to pressure forward. And for Gabe Green, this reminds me of like an easier version of the fight he just had last year against Ian Garry. Like Ian Garry's a slick mover. He's going to be the one on his bike, kind of like Brian Battle. He's going to be moving backwards, just trying to throw a lot of output. But I think Gabe Green can match that output and make it more substantial, land a little bit harder. And he's a tough guy. I think they both have decent cardio in this spot. So what do you think about the ground game of Gabe Green in this spot? Do you think that's going to come into play? I know we've seen Brian Battle taken down in a lot of fights, not just the last one, but he's been taken down by Tresean Gore and I think one other guy as well. What do you think about that aspect of this fight, or do you think it stays standing for the large majority?
It's tough to say. I mean, we did see, Brian Battle get absolutely dominated on the mat his last fight, but at the same time, that was a 20-2 Russian with, probably ridiculous Sambo credentials, whereas, Gabe Green not going to have the same kind of wrestling, but, it's just one of those things where it's like, how easily is Brian Battle going to give up takedowns if, Gabe Green's out here, actively pursuing them? But I think they're going to stand for a good bit, man. I really think they're going to come out here and bang. It's in Brian Battle's backyard. Yep. Apparently the kid's from Charlotte, and you already know how Gabe Green fights every single fight anyways. So, I see them coming out here and, trying to make a statement.
Yeah, it should be a fun one. I just think the adversity overcome by Gabe Green in some fights. I always value that when I'm backing somebody, getting dropped, tasting the canvas from Johan Lainez and still coming back and rallying strong and getting a finish of his own. I like to see performances like that. So we'll see how it goes, man.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that fight, man. Like, he overcame a lot of adversity in that Lainez fight, man. He literally broke Lainez to where, like, so if you watch Lainez's like regional fights, he was out here like knocking everybody out. And after that Gabe Green fight, like, he was never the same. Like, even in the fight he won after that against Darian Weeks, like, he only threw like 20 strikes or something, like ridiculously low. Just had like Gabe Green took something out of him.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Johan Lainez before he came to the UFC. Backed him on the Contender Series as a big dog, and then I backed him against Gabe Green and thought I had that one as soon as Gabe Green hit the cement there, but he bounced right back up, and my bet was up in flames. So, yeah, I gained a lot of respect for Gabe Green there, and I think this is a winnable fight for him. But yeah, afterwards I placed that bet. I found out this is now in Brian Battle's hometown, so I'm sure he's motivated. But I'll call it even. It's his home crowd, but he's also on a little bit of short notice here, like 5 weeks or so. So I see some people in the chat loving the green action here. My guy Shady in the chat. Good to see you in here. He likes those mat time videos, those moves of the week that you're putting out. Good to see that, man. Did you put one out this week, or is that at the end of the week we get that treat?
Every Friday the technique of the week drops. So
are we getting we got the Russian Ronda move? Are we getting to get that high elbow guillotine from Nzechuku this week?
The Kennedy and Nzechuku ninja choke. We're working on it.
Okay, let's go. We got my guy Lou Betty in the chat saying I'm literally on a different show right now. Just want to say hi to my boys. You're on a show, like you're a guest in a show? Man, pay attention. What are you doing, man? The people need you. Good to see you in here, man. My guy Propaholic in the chat as well. And my guy Dev, the dude, MMA Jesus. All the heavy hitters are in here already. So we can move on to the next spot here. One of the people's main event, you could say. The bright, shining fight on the prelims. Ji-Yeon Kim taking on Mandy Bohm at women's flyweight. What a mess this fight is, man. But it's we were supposed to have this fight at some point before, right? And Mandy Bohm pulled out, I think. This seems familiar, like we've broken it down before.
Are you implying you're trying to skip this fight?
No, I mean, I'm not trying to, but we can get into it, man. I mean, the whole money line was interesting to me because I looked on the weekend and I saw Ji-Yeon Kim at like minus 270, minus 275. The line has since tightened up a little bit. People were taking that, just throwing the blind dart in the big women's underdog on Mandy Bohm. It's now minus 190, Ji-Yeon Kim, plus 165 Mandy Bohm. And why that Ji Kim money line was shocking is because she's on a 4-fight losing streak. So still to be this massive of a favorite tells you about the skill level of Mandy Bohm. Not really shown us much in the UFC so far. 0 for 5 on takedowns. She usually does her best work in the clinch pre-UFC. She's not really getting the fight to that realm and just being super gun shy, super low volume at range. So against a striker like Ji Kim, who, man, say what you want about her, she's at least been competitive against some better competition in the UFC. And she had that war with Priscilla Cachoeira that she arguably should have won. So just based on principle, I'm on the Ji Kim side, but I don't think I can bet this fight. So what action do you have in this one, man? Are you taking the dog and Mandy Bohm?
Am I taking the dog and Mandy Bohm? No, I am not taking the dog and Mandy.
I was just seeing if you were still awake.
I mean, like, basically, man, like Ji Kim, like, you're 100% correct. Like, at least, like, even some of these losses, she's come out here and she's put up numbers. I mean, she landed 170 significant strikes against Ji Kim. You know, Tyron Woodley's hasn't even landed half of that in any of his fights, you know, so you got to give her credit. Like, she's got output, and she fights competitive. It's just when you're talking about a chalk number like this, I mean, I remember back in the day when I wanted to max bet her against, you know, a soccer mom named Melinda Fabian, and it ended up being a split decision. So it's just one of those things where it's like, even when it looks like she's got every advantage possible, you just don't, you know, fuck around with minus 190s, -2 this on Ji Kim. Pure pick, I'll take Ji Kim, because I mean, Mandy Bohm, I mean, you know, her numbers are not looking pretty. Let's just leave it at that. She gets hit twice as much as she hits. She's not a takedown threat. I mean, so, you know, what she got, you know? So yeah, I'm gonna go Ji Kim to get back on track, but I'm not interested at the price.
What if we ponder this fight a little bit more? Do you think there's more in the tank? There's more in the arsenal, the tool chest of Mandy Bohm than she's been able to show so far? Do you think she can threaten some groundwork against Ji Kim? It seems like anybody that wants to take down Ji Kim is able to do so. She just hasn't been against a lot of grapplers. You know, is there a world where Mandy Bohm comes in here and lands takedowns, gets control time in 2 out of 3 rounds and steals this?
Well, according to the numbers, she went 0 for 4 in takedowns against Lipsky,
Mm-hmm.
and against Victoria Leonardo, she went 0 for 1. So she's not really always actively pursuing the takedown relentlessly like you'd want if that's what you want her to do here. So I'm not in the business of betting Mandy Bohm in UFC fights, period.
Yeah, it's a real sketchy fight, man. I don't blame anybody for getting that, you know, that giant plus money just out of principle of women's MMA logic here. We got let's see here. Shady saying maybe Kim by decision if you had to. That would chop it down to like minus 125, but we've seen how Mandy Bohm sort of breaks. Like if round 1 doesn't go her way, she starts to kind of fade as the fight goes on. I don't rate her cardio that highly. You know, Ji Kim just death by 1,000 cuts could maybe get her out of there at some point. I would hate to have that Kim decision ticket, and then it goes up in flames. So probably just a pass in total is probably the best way to look at this fight. But interested to see if Mandy Bohm, you know, can't pull something different out of her arsenal here. I just get a weird feeling about this one, man. I feel like the people that got on that giant plus money might be laughing to the bank, but not a fight I really have too much enjoyment over. I'm sure you'll be screaming from the stands since you're going to be there live, dude. This will be your fight of the night, right? Or are you going to go get drinks during this fight?
Nah, I mean, we'll see if they got, you know, what they got to show, because I like watching Ji Kim fight, you know?
Yeah.
She's exciting.
Yeah, she is. And we can move on to something a little bit more interesting here from a money line perspective as well. We got a massive favorite in Natan Levy taking on Pete Rodriguez at lightweight. This is for sure a rescheduled bout because I had a bet on Natan Levy the last time he was matched up in this one. But Pete Rodriguez had pulled out for something minor, I guess. A couple weeks later, we get this on the Charlotte card. And Natan Levy, I just feel like has a lot more, you know, ways to win this fight. Pete Rodriguez, he's somewhere between the skill level of a Jack Della Maddalena and the skill level of a Mike Jackson. So, well, that tells us a lot, Dan, doesn't it? How do you break this fight down? How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of know Natan Levy's game, and we only know parts of Pete Rodriguez's game. We know that Pete Rodriguez is a knockout threat in the first round. The guy's a slugger. You know, he's kill or be killed. And he's got a lot of first round finishes. So we know that that's something to look out for. What we don't know is what happens when fights go past, not even the first round, past like the 3-minute mark, right? What happens when he fights UFC level competition? And you can write off the Jack Della fight. He had no business. He was 4-0 against a top 15 guy. Like I'm not gonna hold that against him. We can just pretend that never happened. You know what I'm saying? Natan Levy, we know what his game is. I mean, he's a good kicker. He's a physical guy. He's getting better with his takedown game. He's got like a little sneaky leg lock and submission game. So we know what he brings to the table. So I think that Levy's probably the more refined guy here, but always got to be careful about Pete Rodriguez bombing on someone because that's what he tends to do when he wins fights. But I'm going Natan Levy here.
Yeah, I like Natan Levy. And that money line did tighten up a little bit. I want to say we're looking at, minus 230 on BetOnline, minus 250 on most other books for Natan Levy. I jumped on that early, when it got re-announced because I thought the money line would go in his favor. So I got like minus 280 or something on Natan Levy in a parlay with somebody else we'll talk about. So you can get a better price now. That's actually not a bad shot. If you want to hedge that off, I thought about doing this. Maybe just in like if shit goes wrong in my betting my betting portfolio, sometimes I have like a round robin of just all the how does this go wrong for my money line pick? And that's plus 850 for Pete Rodriguez round 1 knockout, which is the only way he's been proven to win a fight so far. So we'll see how this goes. Natan Levy doesn't really have like too much of a finishing killer instinct, so I could see it being stretched out. But hey, I can see him challenging takedowns here and getting Pete out of his element.
I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily instinct, man. I think that, that guy that he fought last, Valdez or whatever, like
Gennaro.
Yeah, that dude's like kill or be killed, where like you kind of got to put him out. But like in some of Natan's other fights, like when he got that submission a couple fights ago, like if you give this guy the openings, he's gonna take it. Like for example, he has attempted knee bars in the UFC, and like I don't know what P. Rodriguez's grappling is like, but if his grappling is suspect and he gives up his back, Natan Levy's gonna take that neck. That's just the bottom line. It's just what level's Pete on. I have no idea. Do you know what belt he is? I don't know shit about his grappling.
No idea, man. But I think he's a little bit higher level than what we've seen. Just like you said, you can throw the Jack Della Maddalena fight out. He's got a lot of low level fights before the UFC, not much to go off of. But his boxing doesn't look bad. So if Levy, gets caught lacking with that, it's just his defense is so good. I think his movement is a little bit slicker. So. But yeah, I would say round 1 knockout for Pete, finish or bust in this one. But hey, you don't know. There's a lot of data still missing from this one, but I'm taking the plunge on Levy, and this price is looking a lot better now. So like I said, my guy Prodigy, hey, congrats on going to your first UFC event, man. That's always a fun time talking to, Don Fry. That guy, his voice just sounds like he just inhales testosterone. That guy's a legend. I'd love to meet Don Fry. But we can move right along to I think this I really want to know your opinion on because I've seen a lot of love for Cody Stamann, not so much love for Douglas Silva de Andrade. This fight is at bantamweight. Both guys have stellar records. Of course, the wrestle boxer Cody Stamann, always looking for that takedown threat. He can kind of fall apart when the fight is forced to stay standing for too long. D Silva, the big red flag, of course, his 37-year-old age at this weight class. But in his past couple of performances, man, he doesn't look too bad. Dropping a close decision to Said Nurmagomedov, and before that having a very nice round 2 submission, basically a club and sub over Sergey Morozov. So where the money line is at now, we're looking at minus 140 for Cody Stamann, the slightly younger man, and we've got Douglas Silva de Andrade plus 120. When it was plus 135, I took a stab on Douglas Silva de Andrade here. The only red flag I had was his age, and that is a big red flag, but
what's
that's
his age?
37 years old. He's almost 38, Douglas Silva. So,
but with the supplements he's taking, we can subtract 2 years maybe.
Yeah, he's like a mini Yoel Romero, Vitor Belfort at that point. Just totally shredded. Seems to be in good shape. Cardio looks good. 20 knockouts out of his record so far. I went into this tape, Dan, trying to find reasons to bet Cody Stamann, and I thought that was going to be the side. I went out of the tape totally different with a bet on the underdog. So I just think that Douglas Silva de Andrade is better striking up close. Cody Stamann, he can never really get in the pocket for too long and get out without getting hit more than he lands. Anytime a fight is forced to stay standing, it's either razor close or he loses. And Dude, he's coming off of that victory in January in Brazil over Luan Lacerda, who's a grappler. He was like a massive favorite, like minus 400 favorite over that kid, a grappler, and stayed standing, which was the smart thing. You don't want Cody Stamann taking down a jiu-jitsu player, but man, standing wise, this grappler was outstriking him and actually won round 3. So, that was a big a reminder to me too that fight was super close. So I'm on the Douglas Silva de Andrade side. I think he wins by decision. What's your take on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame you. I mean, Cody Stamann's not going to blow anyone away. Like when Cody Stamann wins fights, they're usually like 50-50 fights that he ekes out. And that's just the bottom line. I mean, he's just solid everywhere. That's about it. He's not spectacular. He's just a solid fighter. You got to respect it because he's been around the UFC a long time. He's made it work. I wouldn't say that he's declining, but I'd say he's kind of plateauing. I haven't seen. I mean, it's been the same Cody Stamann this entire time, and that's just a solid ass fighter. And Douglas D. Silva, he's a fucking vet too, man. It's just kind of like you got a guy that plays it safe in Stamann versus like a Brazilian bruiser in Douglas, and it's just about what do you favor because it's gonna be a close fight. I mean, I think it's a dog or pass situation at the price you took it at. So, I wish you the best of luck. I really don't know because every Cody Stamann fight is super fucking close. So I think Cody, if it goes to decision, probably slightly outworks him, but I'd say Douglas has more finishing upside, could have bigger moments. And let's see what Charlotte judges prefer. It's up to them.
That's a good point. Yeah. What do you think about the fight goes to decision or the overs in this spot? We're looking at let me pull it back up here because they're both durable, right? So over 2.5 minus 215. I think fight goes to decision minus 190. I know Douglas Silva hits hard. Cody never been knocked out before, and likewise Douglas. He's been stopped by doctor stoppage from Peter Yan when he got destroyed in that fight. So it was like a corner stoppage. So these guys have not been finished by strikes. What do you think about that fight goes? Is that a safe bet?
I mean, I don't know about safe bet, but it's a bet that, if they ran it 10 times, I think would cash more often than not, just based on these dudes' history. So, I mean, we've seen Cody get submitted in 30 seconds before.
Yeah, from Saeed.
We've seen Douglas D. Silva not answer the bell before. But at the same token, we've also seen them go to decision a ridiculous amount of times as well. So, I mean, it's just about if you're into playing with, those props at those numbers. I think, like I said, I think more often than not, that specific one does hit.
Yeah, I think so as well. It's just I don't like having double action on a fight. Like I'm on the underdog here. I want to keep it that way, but I just feel like it's the guy who's got the finishing potential here is Douglas Silva. I think he's the one with the finishing potential. I think you're right. If Cody wins, it'll be by grinding out control time and staying safe on the feet over 3 rounds. What's up to my guy Effie from the Any Action Sportscast saying Cody was low-key fighting for his job against Eddie, or am I tripping? Yeah, he was on the 3-fight losing streak at that point, wasn't he? We're looking at Dan brought up at the time he got subbed right away from Saeed. Before that, Merab was able to out-wrestle him, and Jimmy Rivera before that. And that Rivera fight, that's exactly what I'm talking about, Dan. Like, that's a fight where Rivera, even at that point in his career, he's a guy who really rarely got taken down. So when it was forced to stay standing, Cody couldn't put up the numbers that Rivera was able to, so he lost that one. Yeah, he probably was fighting for his job at that point, and luckily they gave him Eddie Wineland, and he was able to knock him out in 1 minute. So interesting fight, man. I love to see D. Silva out here, though. I wish he'd been more active, but I think this is a fight he can pull off the underdog shot here. Tajik Bey in the chat, the GOAT of the MMA community. Good to see you in here, my friend. And we can move right along. See if the order has changed up here. We got Carl Williams up next, taking on Chase Sherman, another transplant fight that we were supposed to have about a month ago. Chase Sherman had pulled out of that one, and now we're getting kind of the same money line we had before, which is a massive one at heavyweight here. We've got minus 410 for Carl Williams, Chase Sherman plus 310. Kick this one off to me, man. What do you like in this spot? Are you taking Chase Sherman to get like a round 1 knockout? What do you think he's gonna do here?
When was the last time Chase Sherman got a round 1 knockout? You know what I mean?
I don't know. When he was not in the UFC, maybe
against Braxton Smith.
Yeah, 2014.
But Carl Williams, I've been familiar with him a long time. I called his amateur fights in the NFC.
Okay.
And you know what? I pride myself on my ability to scout talent, but I got to be honest with you, man. When I called his amateur fights, he was like never on my radar. Like it never crossed my mind that Carl Williams would make it to the UFC. So the fact that he did, man, it's pretty fucking awesome to see. Like, hardworking guy. He was a wrestler in high school with Cody Durden. They went to the same high school. I think they're both state champions as well. I know Cody is for sure, and Carl might be as well. So he's been able to really make it work in MMA. He's adapting to the heavyweight division. And Chase Sherman, I mean, we know the deal. He's got hard leg kicks, decent Muay Thai, tends to gas after round one, and it's profitable to bet against him. So, um, yeah, might there be some sketchy moments along the way? Sure. But Carl's going to use his wrestling and find a way to win.
Only thing that bothers me about Carl Williams at heavyweight is his lack of finishing ability so far, right? Because that just means there's more time in the match for that heavyweight volatility to show itself. And in this spot, I think he's pretty safe because anytime Chase Sherman gets taken down, he's losing the fight for sure. And we just saw what kind of a takedown wrestling clinic Williams was able to put on Lucas Brzezinski, who's a big guy. And I see a lot of people trashing Carl Williams' cardio, but dude, I mean, he had like what, 8 takedowns in that fight? Like, of course he's going to be, maybe mouth breathing for a second in round 3. What did you take about his cardio in that fight? Did you draw anything from that? Good or bad? Questionable? Dangerous?
I mean, he took it on short notice. It was his UFC debut. I mean, like literally, I think, what didn't they call him? Like, wasn't he like the replacement? Lucas had a different opponent and Carl came in there.
I can't remember. I remember that he was a short notice for this fight with Chase Sherman, but of course Sherman pulled out as a result.
Right. But bottom line, I mean, I'm not concerned about that. I mean, it's not like Chase Sherman is Mr. Cardio Machine here or anything like that. Chase Sherman has a reputation for gassing bad after round 1. So, I trust the wrestling grind. If both guys are gassed, I trust the wrestler.
You think Williams can get a finish in this fight at some point?
Possibly. It just depends on how much fight Chase Sherman has in him. I mean, there's fights like was it the Jay Collier fight where, I mean, he just gave up on the mat right away, even the Romana fight? Or is it going to be, one of these other fights where, he gets his ass whooped, but he survives to the decision? So, and then also, Carl is still green, man. Carl's had less than 10 fights, and when you've had less than 10 pro fights, you're going to be making leaps every single time. So Carl's still developing his style. He's still feeling comfortable inside the octagon, getting his feet wet. So I'm not sold on a finish, but I'm not writing it off either.
Yeah, you could never write off a finish against Chase Sherman. I think people are just going to be looking for a way to chop down this minus 410 money line of Carl Williams by saying, like, maybe you could get cute. Maybe it goes over. Maybe it goes to decision, But at this level, at heavyweight, man, it's Chase Sherman. Anything could happen. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets finished or survives. So I do have Williams parlayed up and a juicy parlay with somebody else further on the card. But we can move right along to a very fun Legends fight at welterweight. We got Matt Brown taking on Court McGee. 2 guys from like that era of the Ultimate Fighter that I was actually watching the show pretty actively at that point because they didn't have – don't they have like 5 seasons a year at this point? I feel like there was a period of time where the Ultimate Fighter ran like in the spring and in the fall, and I just got away with watching it. But both of these guys have been around the league for a while. Matt Brown, a lot more finish dependent than I remember his career being. Like, he's had so many awesome moments where he's knocking fools out, but now you look and he's like 2-6 in decisions or something egregious like that. He's got to win the moments in this fight, and Court McGee has been pretty durable and adopted more of like a wrestling game plan to really get him through some of these spots. So if they stand and bang, I think Matt Brown has got a really good money line at this price tag, right? What is he, like a plus 190 underdog in this spot? We're looking at plus 200 for Matt Brown at this point, minus 235 for Court McGee. Value on Matt Brown if he could stand and bang, but if Court McGee goes in there with that wrestling game plan, I think he might cover that minus 235. But both guys are old. McGee just got sent to the Shadow Realm against Jeremiah Wells. I'm taking McGee. I think he should win this by decision, but I have problems betting him in this spot. Who do you like in this one?
Man, if Matt Brown wasn't 42, like if this was just a couple years ago and you gave me a plus 200 on Matt here, because I mean, when you think about it, both of them in their primes, Matt Brown made it to number 5 in the world at welterweight. Court McGee, I don't think he ever scratched the rankings, but if he did, it was probably like
Matt Brown made it to number 5. Oh wait, he did. He had that title eliminator with what's his face, Robbie Lawler.
Right?
Yeah,
he had like a 7 or 8 fight win streak, including a win over Wonderboy and a bunch of other guys. Then he made it to that number 1 contender with Robbie Lawler, which was a fantastic fight, by the way. So Matt Brown knows what it means to be ranked number 5 in the world. Court McGee, I think scratched 14 or 15 max, if he was even ranked. Both these guys are badass. I mean, both these guys died and came back to life, so they're not going to give up by any means necessary. I mean, I think Matt Brown's the better fighter. My only issue is that in these last few years, Matt Brown kind of slows down as fights progress. The Brian Barberena fight most recently, like Matt was doing his thing to Barberena, he just gassed badly in that fight. And if Court can push that pace, which he's known for, then he's got a path to victory. But since I'm going to this event and I don't have action on it, and I want to see Matt Brown, you were talking about him being finish reliant. He's got the most knockouts in welterweight history, and if he gets a knockout over Court McGee, he'll tie Derek Lewis for the most knockouts in UFC history. So I'm rooting for that to happen. So for that reason, I'm going to go with Matt Brown here.
Yeah, he's had so many, man. What's your favorite Matt Brown knockout? For me, it's got to be the Diego Sanchez one where he just sent him to the basement of the octagon with that elbow.
You said what now?
What's your favorite Matt Brown knockout?
Okay, yeah, man. It's the first one I ever saw was when he knocked out Pete Sell like 3 times in one fight.
Oh, yeah.
That was great. The destruction of Jordan Meehan, the destruction of Mike Pyle. Man, he's just got so many knockouts that, man, but for anyone that hasn't seen the Pete Sell knockout, and watch that. That's the one that introduced me to Matt Brown. I was like, wow, who's this guy? And then obviously the Jordan Meehan one, because he had to overcome adversity. The Eric Silva one, and Mike Pyle one. Like, check those. Those are some classic Matt Brown knockouts. Yeah, and what's also cool? A long time ago in a basement in Georgia, here in Atlanta, Matt Brown knocked out Douglas Lima, and then he went on to knock out Diego Lima in the UFC. So he's the only man in MMA history to finish both the Lima brothers via strikes.
Yeah, it just goes to show you how long his career has been, right? That he's got both those on his record. And yeah, there's been a lot of these. I've seen him fight a lot of times live before too. I don't think I was there for the Pete Sell one. I remember that card, though. That was the Quentin Jackson, Keith Jardine cards. We're going back some years on these Matt Brown knockouts, bro. Like, he's been around for a while. And
that's I can talk to someone that knows their history.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the first event I went to was UFC 48. I've been going to a lot of them, man. Like, they're just in the. When I think of dates for my life, I have to judge them based on what fight was happening, at like a certain point. So it keeps my memory pretty sharp. But yeah, I'd love to see Matt Brown go in here and do it again, one more time, get that knockout. But I'm gonna be hands off, like no betting on this fight, and I'll just be rooting for a good fight here. Hopefully they just stand and bang. But we saw Court McGee in the chat, man. He's saying they're gonna go out and stand and bang. So if I slump, I slump. Border Rage, my guy Jay in the house. What's going on, my friend? Good to see you in here, brother. Thanks for joining us. And we have 19 live viewers in here. Make sure you check out the description. I have Dan's Half the Battle YouTube channel, his Twitter, his personal Twitter, his Instagram, all linked down there. So if you live under a rock, you don't know who this man is, make sure you go check him out. He's very smart. So we can move right along to a pretty fun fight here, man. I do have action in this fight. Tim Means taking on Alex Morono. And I kind of have the same feeling of the last fight, right? Like, Tim Means in his prime versus Alex Morono. I might be on the Means side, but Tim Means is 39 years old at this point. Some of the things, kind of like we talked about Matt Brown, his durability, his cardio, those things they used to rely on, he's kind of failing right now. And we're seeing him get dropped in like 1 minute by Max Griffin, have to survive and, kind of squeak out a scorecard loss there. Alex Morono is somebody that's always underrated, man, and I like backing him usually as an underdog, but he's getting some respect on the money line here. We're looking at Morono minus 235 over Tim Means at plus 200. And I do have 2 units on Alex Morono. I just think he's got a very complete game in this spot. And these are both 2 guys, Dan, that like to grapple primarily. Like, Tim Means is a wrestling coach. Morono's a BJJ player as well. but they both like to strike primarily. So I think Morono is still very much in his prime at this point. His durability can fail him in certain spots, like we saw against Ponzi last time. He fumbled that one, but overall, I think he can stand his. He's got that nice, light on his feet movement, good counters, and very good cardio. So give me Morono by decision here. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a knockout, though. We saw him knock down Ponzi early on. Why can't he do that against Tim Means, who I think his durability is kind of behind him at this point? Who are you backing here, man?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. Man, if Tim Means wasn't close to 40, I'd bet him here straight up, because when you look at the numbers, I mean, the numbers don't say that Morono should be -2 whatever here. The numbers say this is a close fight. It's just the only stat that's going against Tim Means is he's 6 years older and he's close to being 40 years old, man. So for that reason, you do have to favor Morono a little bit, but you never know. I mean, Tim Means is slick. Tim Means has been around the game a long time, and Morono is not exactly, the prettiest fighter either, so it wouldn't surprise me, but I lean Morono.
Yeah, I like this, but you see this go into the scorecards more often than not.
That's also tough to say. I hope not, because I'm going to be there and I want to see a finish, but it could also be a 3-round war. So,
Yeah, I think the over is an interesting look. -165, the over 2.5. It's just it would be the Tim Means side I'd be worried about. I'd be worried about him getting cracked at some point, which is odd because Morono's not a big finisher at the UFC level. Pre-UFC, yes, but the UFC level, not so much of a finisher. But I have flashes of maybe this is like that Donald Cerrone fight that they gave him a year and a half ago, where he went out there and just basically barraged him into a standing TKO stoppage. Tim Means is kind of at that point in his career now, so that does worry me. But then if you look at Morono by knockout, we're getting like 2.5 to 1, 3 to 1, maybe. That's just not fat enough for me to put a sprinkle on that KO prop. So I don't know. I think it goes to decision, but I'm just taking that Alex Morono money line. But Dan, I'm used to getting either plus money on Morono or just slight chalk.
Exactly.
I feel like that's when I like to bet Morono, when everybody's looking at this guy who's pasty white, doesn't have a lot of muscle definition, and they overlook him. Those are the spots I like to really load up on him. But I'll take him against an aging vet as well. Bunny Hunter in the chat, what's up, man? I like Morono in this one. Haven't done film study on Means, but that age gap usually tells you that I'm the younger, experienced fighter. I do like Morono's awkward striking. What's up, Patrick? Yeah, he's got that awkward timing to him, but so does Tim Means. Tim Means is a southpaw as well, right? So Morono, I don't think has fought a ton of southpaws, but I think he's training down there in Texas with some good guys like Jeff Neal and on a regular basis. So I'll take him to win this fight. So, and you had no action on this one, Dan? Just watching this one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to do. I mean, I want to bet Ian Garry, but his line fucking sucks. So I'm hoping action comes in on D-Rod and, we can make talks.
Yeah, we'll get that fight in a couple spots here. They did move this Carlos Ulberg versus Ihor Poteiria fight further up the main card, I think, since that Angela Hill and Dern movement to next week's main event. That's dude, Dan, I was gonna put a pretty fat bet on fight goes to split for Angie Hill and Mackenzie Dern. I thought that was a lock at for a 3-round fight. 5 rounds, I'll probably still have a sprinkle on it, but not as much. But I was gonna go harder than I've ever gone on a split decision play in that fight. But anyways, we got Carlos Ulberg at 205 taking on Ihor Poteiria. And this seems like the clear confident pick of the entire card for me on this one. But I will let you kick this one off since I did last one. So how do you feel about Poteiria coming in here against City Kickboxing teammate in Ulberg?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great fight, man, because both these guys coming off knockout wins, and now they got a chance to come out here. There's a prospect showdown, and the winner is going to move on to the top 20, maybe even the end of the top 15. So this is a really big fight for 2 upcoming guys in the light heavyweight division. Ulberg, he's got that kickboxing background, and man, he's been doing his thing. Even in that loss he had to Kennedy, I just felt like he had to, take a lesson there. He thought he was invincible. He had to learn something, but he still showed a lot in that fight. Next fight against Sherman, when you have as low of output as Fabio Sherman, you can do exactly what Ulberg did, and I thought he played that perfectly, and he was -200 there. It was great. Next fight against Stefan, like Stefan gave Azamat Mirzakhanov his toughest fight inside the octagon, and Ulberg treated him like he was nothing. And then Ulberg destroyed Negumariano. So Ulberg seems like he's legit, man. Still getting comfortable in there, but I like what I see. And then with Ihor, on paper, it looks like he's got a lot more experience than Ulberg, but his record's kind of padded, man. I mean, like when you go back, like he was like 14-2 fighting guys that are like 0-0 and stuff like that, So he's got a very padded record. But he got that big win over, the ghost of Mauricio Shogun. But here, I think Ulberg's on a different level. Obviously, you don't like the price now at minus 450. I like the price earlier in the week. I missed it. It was in the minus twos, but it was in the minus twos on like Sunday. Like it's Wednesday right now, and it's minus 405 heading to minus 500. So
I was surprised how fast it moved, dude. That was crazy. I hopped on it because I was looking for the Todd Levy, Pete Rodriguez. Like I was looking for that rebooked one, and then I'm like, Carlos Ulberg is minus 275 against Ihor. What the hell is this? So I parlayed those two together. I think I ended up getting like minus 290 on Ulberg. But I was surprised that moved as fast as it did. I'm not surprised it's the number it is, but dude, that was a fast line movement, man. It's like people found out, they went to the padded record. They're like, wait a second, this guy's not really a 19-3 or whatever his record is.
Right.
What do you think about the jiu-jitsu, like the combat sambo submission game of Ihor? I had to go in the tape index and see some super low quality camera footage of him heel hooking some bum on the regionals. Like, is there any worry about the Ihor Poteiria grappling in this spot?
I'd be more worried about a knockout because these guys are going to swing. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Ulberg's probably knocking Ihor out, but just saying, when you get two big boys that are most likely going to stand and bang until one man falls, there's always a chance that, you never know, so either guy could get knocked out. But I think obviously, the higher percentage here, as the number shows, is that Ulberg's going to knock Ihor out. And that'll be my pick, and I hope we see something violent.
Yeah, like I said, I got a couple units on that Ulberg and Natan Levy Juice Boy parlay, kind of a square play, but I think those two are pretty they got mismatched opponents in this one. I think they're at a higher skill level. And Ulberg, he's going to play the Matador here and snipe off Ihor Poteiria pretty easily. If Negumariano can do it, in round two, we saw Ihor Poteiria was. And I got to give Ihor Poteiria props, man. I bet him against Shogun Hua. It was the hardest bet I've ever made in my life because I love Shogun so much, but just wasn't. He was like 10 fights past where he should have been fighting, dude, like in front of his hometown crowd. Those old Brazilians never go out on a win in their hometown crowd. It's just like historically a low percent chance of them doing that. But Ulberg, dude, his combinations are nice when he counters people. Like, you rewatching some of these spots, like the jab he hit in Chukwi with, that nice jab to left hook he hit Negumariano with, dude, nice combination.
That was nasty.
He hit him with the jab, waited just a split moment for him to come back in, that he hit him with that check left. Beautiful.
Dude, that was such a beautiful combo.
Yeah, that was nice. Against the guy that we said was durable going to that fight. There's a lot of people thinking, like, what happens when is Ulberg going to gas out? Hitting this guy's head, he's not going to go down, and he gets pieced up in a couple minutes.
I still think he's durable. That's prop for Ulberg,
right. Yeah, exactly. So very excited about that. And you already mentioned the Ulberg loss in the UFC against Nzetruku, which seemed like an odd result when that happened in 2021. But now we see that's how Nzetruku makes his money, right? Like letting people kind of tee up on him, and then he comes back and overwhelms them in round 2 or round 3. So, man, I like this spot for Ulberg quite a bit. And I would probably take him inside the distance. And I'd even like the under 1.5 in this spot, quite frankly, because that would cover that Hail Mary knockout blow from Poteiria. So we're looking at, I think it's about even money, right, on the over under 1.5. Minus 140 towards the under 1.5. Yeah, I would take that, to be honest with you. I don't think that's too bad of a number for the mismatch in striking here. So, yeah, we could see Bunny Hunter saying both these guys look like the same fighter, except Ulberg is faster and sharper. Yeah, I mean, they both. I mean, Ihor Poteiria, he holds his chin high, man. He's so confident in his power. Like, he's gonna either land devastatingly or miss wildly. So, I don't know. I don't think his cardio has lasted more than a round and a half. But we can move on to the fight that everybody has got their eyes on this week, which is at welterweight. Garry, the second coming of Conor McGregor, taking on Daniel Rodriguez. And another spot, Dan, where the money line has kind of skyrocketed in the favor of Ian Garry. I think that the plus money is enticing for a lot of people because everybody's looking to fade this kid and call his first loss for Ian Garry. Minus 315 for Garry, plus 265 for D-Rod. How do you see this one playing out, dude? Are you on the underdog in this spot?
Nope. I mean, like, people can, say whatever they want about Garry, McGregor, this, whatever. Like, I mean, that's all talk to me as far as I'm concerned. This kid's action, man. I mean, this kid's money, you know what I'm saying? And every time I bet on him, he's come through. And I feel like he's getting better every single time. I love the stats he puts up. I mean, he's landed over 100 significant strikes in more than one UFC fight. He's landed knockdowns in 3 or 4 of his UFC fights. He's doubled up his opponents on strikes in almost all his UFC fights. Like, and then when you watch his regional fights, the kid's been 5 rounds before. He knows how to grapple. He's long for the weight class. He's young. I like everything about him. So, and he can overcome adversity, as you saw in his last fight. So, I mean, to me, like, I just need a good line. That's all I need to come out here and play Garry, because when the fight got announced, everyone was acting like it was going to be red panty night to finally get to fade Garry. It's like, the way the lines moved is completely the opposite. It's gone all the way. So it was like minus 215, minus 225. I was like, all right, now the D-Rod money is going to come in. Then I wake up, it's minus 250 to minus 270. I'm like, all right, now the D-Rod money is going to come in. Yeah, then I wake up, it's minus 300. I'm like, oh my God. So when's that D-Rod action going to come in? Because
for all the love I've been hearing too, you see, anytime he gets announced for this fight, like when it got announced, there was like, oh, this is the time to pick against Garry, right? Like D-Rod's vicious looking, he's mean, he's going to get in there and box him up close. But I thought the same thing as you. I thought that there was going to be a lot more love for D-Rod here.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate because I'd like to get a good price on Garry. I bet him in a good amount of his fights. I believe in his talent. And yeah, and I think that as far as how they match up, I mean, D-Rod's a vet of the game. I respect him a lot, but D-Rod's not used to fighting longer guys. D-Rod's not used to not having a reach advantage. D-Rod's going to be at a speed disadvantage, and that's something that he's just simply not used to. And if people want to talk about Garry getting dropped his last fight, then you better bring up Dwight Grant flooring D-Rod. So I just think Ian's going to be a little bit faster, a little bit slicker, and whether it's a knockout or a decision, I see Ian Garry getting it done.
That is a good point you brought up about the size difference and like the opponents that D-Rod has fought, because that's something I do when I'm just starting to cap a fight. I'm like, who physically have they fought, before? And that's part of why I picked McGee to beat D-Rod last time, because D-Rod had never fought anybody with that giant, long, gangly reach. And I think McGee's a much easier target to find, as experienced as he is, than Ian Garry's going to be. And Garry's one of these guys, just like we talked about Ulberg, where you go back and you watch how technical their counters are. And I was a lot more impressed rewatching the fights than I was live. Like Garry, it looks like he's getting bullied. It looks like he's, always in harm's way with his chin up in the air. And then you go back and watch, and I think he's getting more improved with his defense. Against Song Kanan, super slick counters, just pulls people in. His timing is pretty elite. So I think you're totally on point here. And I am picking Garry to win this fight. I think it goes. I saw somebody on Twitter pair Ian Garry with the over 1.5. I think that's a sharp same game parlay if you want to put it that way and get cute with it to soften the lineup. Because I think he will win a decision here. I don't think he knocks D-Rod out. D-Rod's never been knocked out, has he? I think he's only got the one submission loss in his last fight to McGee, right? So I think he's dude, can you imagine, Dan, though? Because D-Rod's he's got like this prison record. He's done some time. He's got all the tattoos. I think he's affiliated in the past. Can you imagine the dudes in the yard still in San Quentin watching the TV and watching Ian Garry piece their boy up? Can you imagine?
You got to be proud of D-Rod for making it to this stage and like what he's accomplished. Like he's like 7-2 in the UFC. So win, lose, or draw, my man, you made it.
But dude, they got to be clowning him back there, bro. I just imagined a bunch of tattooed guys looking like D-Rod and just watching this this awkward, gangly Conor McGregor wannabe go in there and just piece him up. But I think he's going to, man. And I like, even the decision prop for Garry, I do like in this spot if you want to try to soften up that number. But yeah, it's scary for me here. What do you think the ceiling is for Ian Garry? I mean, he's 25 years old. Do you think this guy is going to be top 5?
I'm ready to say top 15. That I am ready to say. You know, when Jamal Hill first came into the UFC, I was ready to say top 5. I was ready to say champion. Bilal, I was ready to say top 5. Cheeto, I was ready to say top 5. Zhao Nan, top 5. But Ian, not saying he's not going to be top 5. It's just that weight class is a very deep one. So I'm going to say 100% top 15, and then we'll take it from there.
Does this fight get him top 15? If he wins, I think this will be top 15.
because D-Rod is number 15, or at least he was recently. So I'd say so.
Yeah, I think he was 14 against Magny, and that knocked him down a spot maybe. But okay, we got Jenna Marie in the chat. What is going on, Jenna? Good to see you in here. She's on the phone with her bestie for Wine Wednesday. That's a good holiday. And good to see Dan on the channel. It is good to see him. Same with Sports Fanatic, Gibson, and 2 of my favorite cats collaborating. Yeah, we got to thank Dan for his time, man. We definitely got to have him back. It's long overdue. I've been watching his content for a long time. Taj in the chat. We got Prodigy back in here, dude. Liking your call out there. And he's begging for forgiveness, man, saying that you're ghosting his tweets. What's going on with that? And ghosting his tweets?
Next question.
Plead the 5th. Yeah, I saw the little what did Prodigy say? He's trying to beat up some flyweights. We'll see here, man. I don't know. That's I think he's is he still in high school? That's a young man's confidence, man. You got to give that a pass. I remember there was a one time, Dan, back in like I told you, I did some work at Duke Rufus back in the day. Wasn't a very hard worker, but I was a good striker. I did a lot of Taekwondo. Got pretty high in that. Did some boxing, some judo. And I was training with Duke doing teep kicks. He was showing us teep kicks. And there was 1 second where he's just like, yeah, just give me a teep kick. And I was like, you don't have a pad or a chest protector? He's like, he just kind of laughed. Like, he's just like, no, he just slapped his stomach. Just kick me right here. And at that point, I had that young man's confidence. Where I'm like, dude, you know how hard I kick? Like, I'm going to break your ribs, old man. Like, in my head. And I kicked him and my foot was like throbbing because he's just a keg of a man. And at that point, that's when I got that first, like, all right, I'm not hot shit. Like, there's levels to this, man. Like, it's not as easy as it looks when you're watching it on TV. So I see every week, Dan, there's people on Twitter that are like, oh, man, I beat this person, this weight class. It's like, dude, that would go totally different, my man. That would go totally different.
That's why I humble myself every single day on the mats, man.
Absolutely. Prince of Mischief in here saying hola to you, man. So, and Shady saying D-Rod is getting bet or beat. Oh, one of the two. But we can move right along to already at the co-main event, man. I like this one. This could be a fight night main event at this point. Anthony Smith taking on Johnny Walker at 205. Any fight where Johnny Walker is in is basically a 50-50 fight as far as I'm concerned. So now that the line, I think, has flipped, and he is now it's still about a pick 'em, minus 110 apiece. Money's going in on either guy here. Anthony Smith, to be fair, is kind of 50-50 as well. If you look at how many times this guy's been finished in his career, I know that spans across several organizations, like 50 fights, but Johnny Walker looks focused these days, man. He looks pretty good. He looks like he's taking it seriously, but Anthony Smith, he's more of a technical guy, more of a cerebral fighter. But sometimes that could be, to your detriment. Johnny Walker just goes in there, kind of shuts his mind off, dances his way to a knockout, and I think that's how this one goes down. I just don't know if I have the stones to bet Johnny Walker. Now, most of his fights, he's ending in round 1. Like 8 out of his 10 UFC fights have ended in round 1. He's plus 275 to win in round 1. That might be a sprinkle for like a long shot prop, but I don't know, man. I think Johnny Walker wins this fight. How? I'm not sure. Is it going to be jumping on one leg, throwing pimp slaps the way he knocked out the last grappler he fought? Possibly. How do you see Anthony Smith winning this fight if he could? Is he going to take down Johnny Walker, or is he going to knock him out?
No, if he's going to win this fight, he's got to catch Johnny Walker. Like, that's how Johnny Walker, loses fights. He gets flatline. For the most part, right? So I think that it's one of those things where when Johnny Walker first came to the UFC, it was one of those things where, like, do you remember how John Jones was like the champ, right? And like he'd have like 10-year age advantages over these guys. He'd have 10-inch reach advantages over these guys. He'd have
over everybody
5-inch height advantages over these guys. So I was waiting for another athletic specimen to come in here and finally be able to match Jones on athleticism. So when Johnny Walker first came in, I thought he could be the guy. And then he rattled off those 3 insane knockouts. I was like, oh my God, this is the guy. But then we had to pump the brakes a little bit. He had to go through, he had to take some lessons, and it's good to see him back in the win column, start to get his confidence back a little bit, start to get a couple first round finishes again, and start to basically have hope that one day you can be that guy. So let's see if he's closed the gap, because I think he's got a winnable fight, man. I mean, the reality of Anthony Smith fights, like when he's fighting really old guys, he'll get them out of there in the first round, or guys that are just not on his level, he'll get them out of there in the first round. But like when he fights these better guys, like these higher level guys, it's usually like comeback finishes. It's never like Anthony Smith like picking apart someone from the start of the fight to the end of the fight. It's never like a clinic with Anthony Smith. It's either like he'll catch you or it'll be some kind of comeback finish. So is there, a chance that he can catch Johnny Walker? Of course, you've seen Johnny Walker get caught on multiple occasions. But that being said, man, I think that it's either going to be like this. I think Johnny Walker's going to be winning this entire fight until A, he gets his arm raised, or until B, Anthony Smith catches him somewhere along the way. But my official pick will be Johnny Walker to win this fight.
And what round? Another round 1, another under 1.5.
It's tough because this dude, Anthony Smith, is ultra durable. So, and it's funny because he's actually had more knockout losses than Johnny Walker, but he's still a super durable guy. So I'm not sure on the round, but the fight's a pick 'em. So, we don't need to get cute here. We can just take a side and run with it. So I'm gonna go with Johnny Walker.
Just trying to get a picture of how this goes, because I have the same exact read as you. I cap it the same way, but with Anthony Smith, we haven't really seen him. Like, he's been knocked out a lot, probably at middleweight pre-UFC. Coming into light heavyweight, man, the only guy that stopped him was, and again, this was at middleweight, Thiago Santos, and then, of course, Glover Teixeira as well.
Magomed
Ankalaev ground and pounded him, after his ankle sort of went out last time.
But on that subject, I'm glad you brought that up, okay? Because we'll talk about the ankle in a second. Let's talk about this first. Let's talk about that Rakic fight. People only remember that Rakic was able to kind of get top control and get takedowns and ride him out. But prior to that, like if you turn that fight on right now, Rakic is landing some nasty calf kicks. Like I'm talking debilitating calf kicks. And I think that's absolutely something that Johnny Walker can bring to the table here, kind of chop him down, kind of let's test out if your leg's really healed up or not, coming back, less than a year later. Let's see what the deal is. And if Johnny Walker can be defensively sound, then I think he can look like a big favorite here. It's just, we know what the concerns are. Like we're not delusional. We're not blind to the fact that Johnny Walker could get flatlined. It's just, I don't think that Johnny Walker, I don't think that Anthony Smith can just like pick apart Johnny Walker or anything like that. I think he just has to catch him. Some kind of comeback or early knockout.
I'm just like you, man. I was so excited when Johnny Walker came to the UFC. He instantly became my favorite. I'm like, dude, this 6'6" breakdancing Brazilian named after a Scotch. Like, this is my guy. This dude's awesome. He's in there piecing people up like Ledet with spinning back fists. Who's the other guy he jumping kneed? Misha Serkinov. And then did the worm and, tore his own shoulder off for like a year. So just a goofy character, man. I'm glad to see him back in here on a win streak. So, I don't know, dude. This is gonna be a fun fight. I probably won't have any action on this fight unless it's like a long shot prop on Walker to win early. But hey, man, that brings us to the main event of this fight card, dude. There's a lot of exciting ones on here, but I'm excited to see at the heavyweight division, Gelton Almeida get his first giant test here against the ranked Jairzinho Rozenstruik. And there's 25 of you guys in the live chat, so make sure you hit the like, hit the subscribe, and make sure you check out my guy Dan Levy's links in the description. Give this man a follow on all the platforms and a subscribe. Dude does awesome work, man. So we can dive into this fight. Giant favorite in Gelton Almeida, and this guy has been getting a lot of respect from the betting community in all of his fights so far, but this is the first real test, right? Like, he's been melting through guys like Danilo Marquez, who's a respectable enough grappler, and then guys like Parker Porter, and then most recently a really aged Shamil Abdurakhimov, and I think I forgot the pleasure man Anton Turkali on short notice in there as well. So I mean, Gelton's one of these guys, man, exposing the heavyweight non-ranked fighters as a 205er, physical enough, strong enough, athletic enough, it seems, but he's just melting through these guys, weighing in at like 225 to 230. But Rozenstruik's a big guy, cutting down to 260 for the weight class. And I think Rozenstruik, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this guy might be the biggest power puncher in the UFC at this point since Francis left. Because if you just look at like how casual
Sergey,
Sergey, but Sergey, like he's got lunchbox sized fists, he loads up, and you see Jairzinho Rozenstruik dropping people with jabs repeatedly. Like every knockout you watch this guy, he just jabs them and they're gone. And then
who you got if they fight? Sergey and Jairzinho, and they bang.
I think Sergey could win like Ngannou did, right? Just barrage him early, and then Rozenstruik sometimes isn't awake. Like he's kind of like on cough syrup or something for the first part of a fight at certain points, right? He lumbers in there. But until you touch the man on the chin, then he comes alive and he counters you viciously and knocks you out. So if this stays standing for any amount of time, I think Jailton is, taking the dangerous route here, right? We haven't really seen this guy striking too much, but dude, I timed all of his takedowns, in his fight so far, and it's gotten faster every single time. From like the bell starts to he gets the guy on his back, it's gotten faster in every single performance. We're talking a minute and 40 seconds for Nasruddinov, and now all the way down to 12 seconds it took him to take down Shamil. So I got Jailton. I think he does the typical, slowly works into mount position, pounds him in the face. Rozenstruik gives up his neck, and I think it's a wrap under 1.5. So I do have Almeida in a juicy parlay with Carl Williams, so that's about all the action I have in this one. Give me Almeida here. But what else, man? Rozenstruik, does he have a chance in this fight? How's his defensive grappling going to look?
So that's the big question, because what's interesting, man? Look, so his takedown defense isn't the best, but Rozenstruik, like, he's pretty defensively sound on the mat, man. Like, every time he gets taken down, like, okay, it takes him a while to get back up, but he's kind of able to like minimize damage and, just kind of hang out, kind of, preserve that gas tank. And when it's time to explode, it's kind of like my boy, the Black Beast, where, he explodes back up at the right time and then he knocks guys out. So, but that being said, he hasn't been taken down by a guy of the, jiu-jitsu credentials of Jailton. And with Jailton, it's not just the jiu-jitsu black belt. He's got good wrestling for MMA as well, because he's not out here like Kron Gracie, butt scooting or any bullshit like that. Jailton can actually take people down. I mean, like, even on Contender Series, he took down a Russian 3 times, and don't be surprised if that same Russian comes to the UFC in the next year or two, right? So Jailton's
that guy's good. Like, Nasruddinov is good.
Yes, for real. And then another thing about Jailton, remember how we used to talk about with Khamzat Chimaev, and I'm glad early in the show you said the Brazilian Chimaev. And here's a good example of that. Remember how like in Chimaev's like first 3 or 4 UFC fights, he only like ate 1 punch. Like, yes. So like, okay, so Jailton's UFC debut, he ate 0 punches against Danilo Marquez. Jailton's next fight against Parker Porter, he ate 0 strikes against Parker Porter. His next fight against Anton the Pleasure Man, he ate 1 strike against the Pleasure Man. And then his next fight against Shamil, he ate 1 strike against Shamil. So what I'm trying to say is you actually have a very valid point how this guy hasn't been touched. He's absolutely that dominant. So the way for Rozenstruik to win this fight would be he'd have to, take this ass whooping up front. Just accept the fact that this guy's going to take you down. This guy's going to have his way in multiple positions. You just got to have to minimize the damage, hope that he kind of drains his gas tank trying to finish you. And then when the 3rd round comes, then hopefully the takedowns are harder for Jailton to get. And that's where Biggie Boy can potentially knock him out, because we don't know what Jailton's stand-up is like. And he has been knocked out in the past. So that would be the path to victory for Jairzinho. But I think more often than not, I think the odds clearly reflect that more often than not, I mean, Jailton gets it done on the mat early. I mean, just put this in perspective, my man. This is scheduled for 5 rounds, right? The under 4.5 is minus 1,000. Tell me the last time you saw minus 1,000 on under 4.5. The under 3.5 is minus 770. The under 2.5 is minus 450. The under 1.5 is minus 235. So they don't think that this kid or this grown man lasts even half a round. They think Jailton's just going to come out here and destroy him. And there's a chance that happens. And if that happens, I mean, you're talking about someone that you're going to throw in there with a Tom Aspinall, with a Sergey Pavlovich, with a Curtis Blades, with, one day a John Jones. So let's see how good Jailton Almeida is. And I'm pumped for this matchup. Like they said, all right, you passed the Parker Porters, the Shamil Abdurakimovs, sweat free. Now you're fighting a top 10 guy in Jerzino, and only the elite guys beat Jerzino. Are you elite? Let's find out. -500 says he is.
Yeah, that's kind of why I compared him to Chimaev in that way, right? Where he beats a lot of lower level guys and then jumps right in there with the number 2 guy in Gilbert Burns, right? So they're kind of doing that with Jairzinho here. He's like the one guy who's, I don't know what he's ranked, but it's pretty high up there, right? Like number 8 or 9.
He's number 8, like and he used to be like number 5 at one point.
Yeah, he was, and then dude, the saddest day of my life. So we did see this. This is relevant. The story I'm about to tell of one of the saddest days of my life, but. We have seen Jairzinho go in there and get a knockout late, right? And this is my point. I'm a huge Alistair Overeem fan. I was like in that little old man streak he had going for him, right? Knocking out Pavlovich, knocking out Oleinik. And then he went in there against Rozenstruik and kind of tossed him around. He used the very simple, like almost Greco-Roman style wrestling to take him down. Rozenstruik looked like a little baby on there trying to get back to his feet. You could tell that was the first time he was really exposed in the grappling against a bigger man. And then last 10 seconds of the fight, he hits Overeem with a jab and then a big right hook and splits his face open and gets that win, dude. That was a very sad day for me because I was already cheering for my man Overeem that he got that W. And then, man, right at the last, and then he did the thing. He did the BJ Penn Sean Shirk where he called the fight off himself. And I think it was Dan Mergliotta is like, oh, he's walking away. I guess he won the fight.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, so it's a very sad day for me. R.I.P. Overeem. But yeah, I think you're right, man. I think this ends pretty quickly. I think it ends pretty violently, and it would be. I think Rozenstruik has that one moment, right, where like Shamil almost did it, right? He just knew that he could land that one snap front kick, and then he's going to dive for the double leg. So Shamil threw like a big. I think that was the one strike he landed, like a big overhand that landed on Jailton's chin. If you could get Rozenstruik to do one of those flying knees up the middle, the way that he's been known to do before, swolled up Curtis Blades' eye with one of those, that would be his one shot. But as soon as he gets put on his back, I think this is pretty well over. So, like I said, I got him closing on a parlay, and that's about all my investment in this fight. I'm not going to mess around with those time props, I don't think, even though I want to. Just not a good bet. So, all right, you guys, that is all of the 12 fights for UFC Charlotte. Awesome fight card, man. I like a lot of these fights. We got some Legends matchups. We got some interesting dogs that I think are live here, and we get to see some prospects like Jailton and Ian Garry. So, yeah, man, thanks for sticking around. Dan, thank you so much for stopping on the show for your first time. I'd definitely love to chop up fights with you again. I'd certainly respect your takes in the game, how long you've been doing this. Love your show, and I love that you're doing that move of the week now and showing people some martial arts as well as betting content. So, hey, the floor is yours, man. Shout out what you got going on the rest of the week on your channel.
Yeah, man. Firstly, thank you so much for having me on. Thank you to all your audience as well for tuning in. Sincerely appreciate it. I'm on Twitter at Best Fight Picks. My podcast, Half the Battle, is available everywhere podcasts are found. And my new series, The Technique of the Week, drops every Friday. And basically, I'm just trying to show one jiu-jitsu technique a week in under 90 seconds, ideally in under 60 seconds, and just make it fun and informative, and that's it, and straight to the point, no BS. And we've been having a lot of fun with it. So hope that the other day I got my first DM, like someone told me that I inspired them to try their first jiu-jitsu class. So just if I can show y'all just maybe a small little detail you didn't know about, or open your eyes to something new, then I did my job, or just keep y'all entertained. So thanks again, Patrick. Sincerely appreciate it. To the fans, thank y'all as well, and good luck this weekend. Oh, and one more thing. If you're in UFC Charlotte, don't hesitate to come up to me and say what's up.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There's a lot of people on the last card in Newark because we've got so many East Coasters that are in this game, right? I'm not sure how many people are down there with you in the community down in South. Do you know anybody that I would know that's down there with you by Atlanta or in the Carolina area? Any content creators? No.
Sorry, one more time. What was the question?
Any content creators that are in our space that are down there by Carolina or down there by Atlanta?
I mean, I'm meeting up with some people, but they're traveling, okay. So they're just making the trek. It was in the East Coast, so stuff like that. I don't know if exactly in Carolina though, but I know Charlotte's a badass place. I'm excited to go.
Yeah, man, I wish you the best of times, man. I'll be watching this
Thank you.
from at home. I'll be doing the live fight companions. If anybody wants to watch the fights with me around brunch time, dude, I'll be streaming on YouTube with a few other cappers, watching our money roll in over some mimosas at that time. So hit the like, hit the subscribe. I'll have my best bets and props out within the next day, and I'll catch you guys very soon. Cheers.